idea was to kind of to share out each of our personal emergenetics with each other, and talk about how the emergenetic individual profiles relate to our leadership, what it is and what it's not, or our asset-based leadership. So what is this? What do our individual emergenetic profiles? How does that relate to what I think comes naturally for me, and maybe what takes more energy for me to have to do with some of these some of the qualities that we put on the list. So, and then we thought that would be a good way just to ground, since we have new folks too, to ground everybody in the emergenetics profiles and how they can be used. So we thought that would, tying that with the leadership asset list would be a good way to spend time in October. And then for November, it was great because we're kind of piecing some things together. So we thought it would be fun to use the consultancy protocol and ask each of us to bring what's a dilemma, a problem that you're working on right now. And the protocol is you're in a group of 3 or 4, the person who has the dilemma, they share about their dilemma, and then they have to pull back and take notes while people outside of that person talk about it. And the people, they can ask clarifying questions first, and then they talk about it, and that person takes notes. And then, and it's all has certain times to it, and then at the end, the person who shared the problem says, well, here's what I heard, and here's what I think, I might think about next in solving this problem based on hearing the conversation. But somehow within that, even add in, and what does that mean for the leadership qualities that we have listed? Like kind of looking through that lens, how would we approach this problem? And then we also liked the idea of bringing in some of the experts from the outside, maybe some of the people that we met even today. One person had been a superintendent, another person worked at United Way. They've had some different experiences than we have. And possibly in November, when we do the consultancy protocol, they could actually sit, in some of the groups and participate. But then they could share a dilemma with us, and we could, go through that protocol maybe in a slightly different way, kind of problem solve in smaller groups. How would we approach that problem, and how might we solve that, or what would we consider, and share that with that person, and then that person could share out actually how they actually did solve that major issue, or maybe some real challenging thing that maybe they had to walk through as a leader, and what were they thinking about in making some of those decisions.
Great.
So we could get another perspective.
Thank you.
That's what we thought for October.
Okay. Group number 1. What you got?
So in October, we thought it was important to kind of reground in that more than, less than, right, piece, so that we're really sure about what it is we're looking for and clean that up, and that we have some common agreement on that. That in between now and then, we would each kind of think about and maybe bring, at least mentally, some ideas around some other resources that are identifying qualities of good leadership and good teams, to see where the overlap is, and that might help us identify gaps and or things that are repeated. So we felt like to move on, we had to have clarity around that first. And then in November, talk about the application piece. Having thought, again, doing some homework in between October and November, doing maybe a self-assessment on the team piece and on the self-leader piece, and then being ready to be interviewed by one another to go deeper into what we felt about that compared to the rubric piece.
Thank you for that. Now think about this now. 1, is there a way to integrate anything we've got there now creatively? Let's just talk about that for a minute. And then do we maybe have 3 sessions here, or maybe 4? We don't have to limit ourselves to 2. So what's coming to your mind, and then we're done.
The protocol Ginger talked about could integrate nicely with the interviews that we talked about in November if we just blended those 2 processes.
Spend one part of the meeting that, doing the interviews, and then maybe the second part doing that. We could.
All right, I think the outcome's the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that could keep going. Yep.
No, because we had also mentioned the actual product itself, so we weren't sure. Are you going to come back and have that completed for us? The less than more of approach. Or
that'll be done.
Okay, so we're not going to do so that clarity piece. We wouldn't be engaging in that first area.
Well, no, all I'm doing is literally deleting the 2 columns in between.
Okay.
Oh.
The rest is your work.
The reason I ask is because then it seems like there would be some chronology to this. There'd be a sequence of time that a certain order, right? That we would want. If November is converging, what comes first, the red or the green for October?
There you go. And again, maybe it's 3 sessions.
Right.
Doesn't have
That's
to
what
be.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of like green October, and then November being the red October, and then December
Red October.
being
January.
or January
Uh-huh.
being those 2 Novembers. Does that make
Oh.
sense?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do people think about that?
Like it.
January.
Like?
Yeah.
You
Like?
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 Yes, please.
Okay.
Cool.
Is there anybody on this team between now and October that would just spend a little bit of time with me on the phone and with probably Steven as well, who I'm using for this, to just think about what this looks like a little bit more? Somebody from the team who came up with this concept over this end?
Yeah.
Will?
Sure.
Will, yeah? Will, you guys? Okay, Sean and Will? No, you go. No, you go. Okay, Sean and Will. That's all we need for now. And then who would like,
We would also, though, have to,
so this is November.
people with outside consultants in the form of literature or resource would bring you whatever that is, whether it's an article, any frame you have around what effective teams do, a summary, a note card, book notes, whatever you have, just to help bring some of that.
So, if we do this in October, is there a way we can ground that conversation in a context of some kind, so we're not just talking theoretical as we talk about that in October? Like, could we do some of this and then have something, a scenario or a case study or something we could apply it to? Because sometimes, and there can be value in this, like, just, sometimes if we just talk about leadership and talk about what best practices are and all of that, it doesn't, I guess I'm talking about my own learning style, it helps me if then it's like, okay, so what would that look like and sound like in a scenario? Or, so maybe part of the research could be, you know, bringing a case study and letting us all kind of chew on it and then look at the research and everything that we talked about so we can have application during that meeting. Because otherwise I guess the concern would be it would just be really theoretical or just.
I think that's a
talk about
key
leadership.
driving question as we go through cleaning it up. So at each stage, if we believe there's lack of clarity, then we ask the question, what does that look like and sound like? Instead of just a broad descriptor, tell me what it really feels like in real life and give an example of that. So you should, if we're proposing something on that stay on or go off the list, we'd have to be able to justify it by being able to put it in some type of context. Each of those elements as we go down.
I agree, and then I wonder if that's the element of the self-assessment, and that's that practical application. I now have clear understanding of what it is and what it isn't. Here's where I believe I fall. Oh, that sets us up for either deeper understanding of then that coupled with my emergenetics profile, and or a scenario that I would be living and bringing back as part of how we have November, former October.
So part of what we could be doing just between now and October might be to kind of speak to these examples, is you looking at those elements just right now. What are those elements right now? And where do you already find yourself stumbling or not reaching the more of? And in what's the context in which you are having that struggle around that element?
So would it make sense to then combine October and November together rather than having them separate? I'm
Oh, I see what you
struggling
mean,
with
that this
and
could be
take
one?
the entire meeting in October to do that work, because it seems like kind of what you were saying, this was connected to making this real.
And I mean, that's maybe one way. Another way I heard you say is a case study or something from, could be another way to do that. I just think if it's that end goal was that for us as learners, something really speaks to me about that self-assessment and going, I really know this about myself and I know this from my emergenetics profile. How am I using both of those things? Can we get there in 6 hours between October and November feels doable.
Mhm. We could maybe have it as an option and see how it goes, right? Because as you suggested, Brian, it might take us a while to sift through it, and on the other hand, we may get through it fairly quickly, or might not take us as long as we may think. So maybe we'd be ready to go with what we're thinking about for November and do it in October if the first part doesn't take as long.
So when you hearing you talk about context, Ginger, I'm just wondering, like, because in my mind, like, when we're making this, is it, like, the context always comes with me? What is a bad meeting I've been in? Oh, I don't wanna do that. What's a good meeting I've been in? Ooh, I like that. What's the way I feel when I'm in that? Or like, for me, like, I don't know, I feel like I can't separate the context from this, kind of. But I know that you were like, you wanting I'm trying to figure out, like,
Well, and maybe that's the answer.
that's
Maybe-
like, from now until then,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, again, some of those things. So it doesn't feel theory. It's like, no, I've actually felt empowered in this meeting and clear.
And maybe that's how we explore it, is we say, okay, we'll research on collaboration or whatever we bring, and we come with some examples of, okay, here's where I think, for me, here's where collaboration really worked, and here's where, I thought it was gonna work and it didn't, but, so we can, as we look at those different points, we're grounding in our experience.
I'm with
Just
you.
to make it real.
I'm with you on the totality of this year, and I think that's what we all agreed to last time, is that we don't wanna take this and just talk about it and learn about it. We wanna be practitioners of it, we wanna be deepening it, we wanna be becoming the leaders of, that lead effective teams. So if we don't,
Okay.
because I had the same thing when you guys were like bringing an expert with another, I'm like, I don't wanna hear one more person tell me like, this is what I do. I want you telling me how you did it and how you struggled.
Right.
More as an effort to support you, but I'm learning while you made your mistakes, and now you're listening to this one. And, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Awesome.
that's exactly it.
I want to bring this to a close. So we have your input all on video. We will watch it and then share back with all of you a prototype for kind of these 3 sessions, what that would look like. And then I think we're ready to go. Beautiful work, guys. There's corn. So,
Yes.
so Will, you want to hand out some corn?
No,
as people
there's
go?
bags.
Okay.